G'day everyone, in this video I'm going to give you a quick overview of how to assess the ecological function of your waterways riparian zone. So this assessment will indicate to us what extent humans or fire have actually altered the riparian zone and actually rate its ability to perform ecological functions and support animals in the area. So to do this assessment we're going to need a tape measure and we're also going to need a compass and a GPS, but for those I can just use an app on my phone, and then you also can't forget just your data sheet to record down all this information. Also we're going to be heading into the bush, so just make sure you're dressed appropriately for the conditions. So to conduct this assessment, the first thing we need to do is just find ourselves a stretch of about 200 metres or more of the riparian zone that we can actually access. And then our first assessment, we'll be looking at the continuity of the vegetation working parallel to the waterway. And then the remaining assessments we'll conduct perpendicular to the waterway, extending the width of the riparian zone and space these out evenly at 4 points along that 200 metre or more stretch.
Riparian zones with high vegetation continuity act as important corridors for wildlife and can link otherwise fragmented habitat in an area. For the assessment, the riparian zone is only considered covered if the canopy vegetation is greater than 5 metres in width.
Alright, so I've just finished walking about 250 metres or so along the riparian zone, and what I've been doing is just recording any gaps in the canopy vegetation. I'm going to use this information just to find out what percentage is actually covered so we can put that information into our worksheet. Alright, so now that we've finished our longitudinal assessment, we can start on our perpendicular ones. So these ones will extend directly perpendicular from the waterway for the full width of the riparian zone. And we're going to repeat about 5 different assessments for each of these. So the first one, we'll start way up at our 200 metre stretch or more, and then repeat these at 4 evenly spaced locations, working our way back to the site. So before we actually start to walk the transect to do our 5 remaining assessments, we just want to note down the exact latitude and longitude of the starting point of the transect, as well as what the exact compass bearing is that we'll be walking along. Because the GPS can be a little bit inaccurate sometimes, we also just want to note down as another additional reference location. So this could be something just like it's 2 metres downstream from the large casuarina. Alright, so the first assessment we're going to be completing is that of vegetation cover. So to do this assessment, we're going to traverse the full width of the riparian zone. While we're doing this, just take note of the percentage cover in terms of canopy, understory and ground cover species. We're then going to use the key in our data sheet to help actually inform our decision. And then we're going to repeat this process, but do it for all the native canopy species, ground cover species and understory species. So to do this, just visualize it all as if all the exotic species were absent and then reevaluate your percentage. Alright, so the next assessment we're going to be doing is just looking at the level of habitat and debris along the riparian zone. So we're going to walk our transect again. This time we're going to be looking out for things such as standing dead trees, fallen logs, what the percentage of actual leaf litter is covering the ground, and even things like hollow bearing trees that create great little homes for our fauna. So yeah, these things are really important, not just creating that habitat for animals, but also just limiting the amount of erosion occurring in the riparian zone. The next thing we want to do is just look at the level of recruitment or regeneration of native species. So this is a great indicator to us of the long-term health of the vegetation community. So what we want to do is just walk along the transect and just count the number of species that we can find that make up the native canopy and the native understory layers in your area. Once you count all these, just record it down in your notebook.
The last assessment we'll be doing will just give us a rough idea of fire damage of the riparian zone in our area and the types of regrowth occurring. First, we just want to look for any signs of fire damage and where these occurred, be it understory or if it was a fully fledged canopy consumption. And then we can select the most appropriate fire severity category on the worksheet. Then we just want to look at what types of regrowth are occurring and where it is, if it's mostly seedlings or if it's all concentrated along the trunks of plants. We also just want to note down if it's dominated by weeds or native species regrowth and regeneration.
Don't stress if any of these instructions came across super confusing. Just remember on the day you're going to have guidance and you're going to have the assessment booklet to actually walk you through it. It's going to give you a lot of background information on why we're collecting it and how to collect it. And just remember that if you do get stuck at any points, you can always take a photo of it, you can always take down some notes, and then you can get some advice from someone else later on, just to make sure we get the right answers in our work booklet.